You know, M3GAN really is titanium. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2022 sci-fi horror comedy, M3GAN. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. M3GAN stars Allison Williams, Violet McGraw, and Jenna Davis, and was directed by Gerard Johnstone. It tells the story of M3GAN, an AI-enhanced doll that's been tasked with protecting a young girl. M3GAN, of course, becomes self-aware though, and takes her protective assignment to the extreme. Historically, January has never been a great month for horror releases. September and especially October are the genre's months to shine, so when horror movies get held back until the start of the new year, it's not usually an encouraging sign. There have always been some exceptions to this trend, but over the last few years, it seems like the January horror release stereotype has started to fade away. Although technically a 2022 release due to a December LA premiere, M3GAN was the first theatrical horror release of the new year, and it initially seemed like it could go either way in terms of the January horror curse. Sometimes you just see a trailer and know the movie's either going to be great or awful. This one looked like it was really straddling the line between dark comedy and unintentional humor, so I wasn't sure which way it was gonna go. Luckily, it turns out that the humor in the trailer was intentional, and I'm happy to say that this was an exceptionally entertaining movie, and a solid January horror release. The basic premise is pretty familiar, and will likely immediately conjure thoughts of other similar films, like Child's Play. And the story and plot progression are equally familiar, and more than a touch derivative, but the movie is less about the content of the story than it is about the way that that story is presented to us. It's got a really fun mix of tones. Creepy horror thriller, cautionary sci-fi tale, campy dark comedy with a big dash of satire. Much like the AI at its heart, this movie is very self-aware, but it makes for an incredibly fun time. This movie definitely falls more on the horror comedy side of the spectrum than it does on the traditional horror side, but it's not devoid of horror. I'm not sure anything in this film could constitute a true scare, so if that's what you're expecting, you'll probably be disappointed. But this certainly has creepiness and a decent amount of suspense, especially for a movie whose plot is so telegraphed and predictable. M3GAN is an unsettling character, with some chill-inducing movements and puppeteering at times, but even when she's still, she's creepy. The action horror elements are mostly presented in a fun way, but this film's got some surprisingly brutal kills. Though with the PG-13 rating, these kills nearly all occur off-camera. An R-rated cut would be bloody and fun, but there's something to be said about gateway horror, and also about the effectiveness of leaving certain things up to the audience's imagination. Sometimes what we picture as happening off-screen is far worse than what we would have been shown on-screen. I was expecting the humor and the creepy chills, but I have to admit I wasn't expecting M3GAN to be as thematically layered as it is. I realize how ridiculous that sounds when talking about a campy horror comedy about a murderous doll, but there's actually some heart to this film, and some genuine messages. The cautionary tale about artificial intelligence isn't exactly new, nor is the debate about whether technological advancements are always a good thing, especially when digital means of accomplishing something replace manual ones. But this film also delves into parenthood in an unexpected way, and even approaches grief in a surprisingly mature and heartfelt manner, acknowledging that it's something that needs to be felt and worked through, rather than just buried and distracted from. So whether we're talking about the themes, the humor, or the undeniable entertainment value, I think it's safe to say that this is not a typical January horror release. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number one is the tone. It was a little odd at first, and the story took some time to get going, but this movie offers up a really satisfying tonal blend. Creepy horror thriller, fun sci-fi action, dark comedy, heart, even a little music. The blend was unexpected, and is admittedly a lot, which can be a challenge for any movie to handle, but it really worked here. The second pro is how entertaining this film is. This is a bit of an offshoot from the first pro, but this movie was just an insanely fun time. It's silly and gets pretty campy at times, but it's still a fun and enjoyable horror movie. I saw this opening weekend at a small indie theater, which was probably a weird choice. This theater never has huge crowds, and is frequented by more serious filmgoers, so there's rarely any audible crowd interaction. But there was a lot of laughter and uncontrolled giggling at my screening. And at the end of the movie, people were actually clapping at this theater where people usually silently sit and watch the movies. So I think it's safe to say that M3GAN is a crowd pleaser. On the con side, my only real issue is how derivative this film is. This isn't a huge problem for me personally, but the familiarity of the premise and story is undeniable. This is definitely a mashup of ideas and plot points you've seen before, just delivered in a shiny, fun M3GAN-shaped package. The story's by the numbers and fairly predictable, and just about every major plot point is very obviously telegraphed, but with a movie like this, I think knowing what's coming is actually part of the fun. It builds this anticipation for certain expectations to be met, and when they inevitably are, there's a degree of satisfaction that comes along with it. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying M3GAN or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give M3GAN 4 out of 5 paws. I definitely was not expecting to go this high with this one, but this was an exceptionally entertaining movie. It's campy and funny, but also has a dose of creepiness to keep the horror fun. The storyline is pretty predictable, so the plot won't surprise you, but it's a fun, modern revamping of a story you've likely seen and enjoyed before. I would recommend M3GAN to fans of horror comedy. Although it's got some genuine messages and a heartfelt through line, this is not a movie to take seriously, nor is it one that ever aims to truly scare. Instead, it's a fun horror thriller that blends camp and satire to create a wonderfully entertaining mix. Fans of creepy doll or AI-focused movies will also probably enjoy the premise, but don't expect a story you haven't already seen before. If you liked M3GAN, I would recommend the 2019 remake of Child's Play. The 1988 original might be the one that immediately comes to your mind when you see this premise, and it's another good one to check out, but I think the 2019 reboot of the Chucky franchise is a little closer to M3GAN, in both tone and story, swapping out the voodoo element of the original movie for a more self-aware AI origin. If you want some more sentient toys, you might want to check out Small Soldiers. This is more of an action comedy than a horror film, but it's still got its fair share of dark and creepy moments, as an army of small militant commandos wage war on a family. If you prefer non-toy AI robots, you should watch iRobot. This Will Smith-led sci-fi actioner explores a futuristic world in which intelligent robots serve humanity, and, as probably expected, a world in which AI leads to some problems. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen M3GAN? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite movie about artificial intelligence? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies. The way life should be.